What's up, developers? Last year in 2024, 7 new built-in functions were added to JavaScript sets, and they're all about comparing data from one set to another. And because sets are just arrays without duplicates, all of these can apply to arrays too. If you've ever had to find out if one array is a subset of another, there's now a function for that. So in today's video, I'm going to show you how to use all 7 of these functions, how they compare to vanilla arrays, and at the end I'm going to run some benchmarks to see which is faster, sets or arrays. Let's get started. So here's our starting point. I have an array of 5 fantasy books and I have an array of 5 action books. There's 2 overlapping between them, and then I create a set from each of these arrays. Let's take a look at our first function. It's called difference. And this is going to enable us to find all of the fantasy books that are not considered action. And here's what that would look like. I'm going to wrap it in another function that we can export so that I can do some performance testing later. Cool. So this is what it looks like. Here, right on the first set, you can call difference, and then you can provide the second set, and it's going to filter out any overlapping elements inside those sets. So here we're going to expect that the fantasy book array, it will return these top 3 and filter out these 2 overlaps because they exist here in the action books. And before I run this code, let's go ahead and write the vanilla array equivalent so we can see what they look like side by side. Thank you, Copilot. This is what I was looking for. So we're going to give it 2 arrays, and the first array we're going to filter it where the second array does not include that book. So very similar. Let's go ahead and run this code and make sure that they're giving us what we're expecting. Perfect. We got what we expected, just the 3 top books from the fantasy books array. All right, let's move on to our second function. It's called intersection. And we can use it to find the overlap of 2 sets. So in our case, we want to return only books that are both fantasy and action. And looks like Copilot has nailed it here. That's exactly what I was looking for. So here we can simply call intersection on our first set, provide it the second, and it will give us those overlapping books, which will just be The Lord of the Rings and A Song of Ice and Fire. Let's see what this would look like as our array equivalent. And Copilot's got the suggestion I was looking for as well. So here we're going to filter the fantasy book array to only return those that are also in the action book array. Let's go ahead and run this code to make sure that it's working as expected. And here we can see we got Lord of the Rings, Ice and Fire, Lord of the Rings, and Ice and Fire. Awesome. So that's working as expected. Now let's take a look at symmetric difference. Symmetric difference sounds fancy, but it just means to return all of the elements that are not overlapping. So in our case, that means return all of the books that are fantasy or action, but not both. And this is what it looks like for calling the set function. Simply call it the same way we have with the other ones and give it the second set you want it to compare against. And now let's check out what this would look like for a vanilla array equivalent. Not exactly what I was looking for there, Copilot. Okay, so this to me is one of the most powerful examples because it takes 5 array functions in order to do what symmetric difference can do in one function. With the array equivalent, we need to first find the overlap between the two arrays, and then we need to take the arrays and concatenate them together and then filter out any of the overlaps in order to get the symmetric difference. So let's go ahead and run this code, and we're expecting this to return all of the books except Lord of the Rings and A Song of Ice and Fire because those are the overlap ones. Cool. It looks good. We've gotten all 6 of these and all 6 of these, and our 2 overlapping books are not included. Let's take a look at our next function. It's called union, which will return a new set with all the elements combined from both sets, and it will remove the duplicates for us. And Copilot is on fire. It knows exactly what I want to do. So here with the array logic, we can see it's going to concatenate the 2 arrays together, and then we actually need to turn it into a set, and then the spread operator turn it back into an array, because turning it into a set will remove the duplicates, and that's the most common way to remove all duplicates from an array, is to turn it into a set and then turn it back into an array. Removing all duplicates with an algorithm from scratch is way more work, so this is what we're going to do. Now let's go ahead and run this and make sure they're working as expected. So we should get a list of all of the books, and the duplicates should be removed. Perfect. So here we've gotten everything. We have Lord of the Rings and A Song of Ice and Fire, and we only have 1 of each of them, which is what we expected. We didn't want to have 2 of both of them. Now let's take a look at is disjoint from, which will return true if the 2 sets have no overlap. So the array equivalent here is that we need to check through every book in the first array and find out if it's included in the second array. Let's go ahead and run these. And since we know that there is in fact overlap in our 2 arrays, we would expect both of these to return false. Perfect. We got the correct answer. Now let's take a look at is subset of, which will return true if every value in the first set is also in set 2. Otherwise, it will return false. And Copilot got this right. So here's the array equivalent. We're going to check every book and make sure it is also included in the second array. So we know that our arrays are not subsets of each other, so this is going to return false. Let's go ahead and run these and make sure we're getting the right answer. Okay, perfect. Working as expected. Let's take a look at our last function, is superset of, which will return true if set 1 contains all of the values in set 2. And Copilot got this right again. So the array logic is very similar. The only difference to is subset of is that array 1 is checking every, and here in superset, array 2 is checking every. So We know that our arrays are not supersets of each other, so I would expect both of these to return false. Let's go ahead and run it and make sure they're running as expected. Okay, perfect. Now that we've got all of our functions, let's go ahead and benchmark them to see what's faster, arrays or sets. When benchmarking, you need to use a decent amount of data because when an array only has a few elements, it's going to return instantly no matter what function you use, which is why I use faker up here to create a bunch of fake data for me. And I'm going to create an array of 1,000 fake fantasy books and an array of 1,000 fake action books. And then I create a set from both of those. And this will give us enough data to see which data structure performs better, arrays or sets. I've also added some console logs just to make sure the length of all of these are the same. I'll be using Dino to do the benchmarking because it makes it very easy. And let's go ahead and get this going. Cool. Copilot caught on and made that super easy. So to run these, we do Dino bench. All right, we have our results. So just to verify, the length of our arrays and sets were all the same as expected. And we can see that the difference array here took 796 microseconds, whereas the different set only took 6.5 microseconds. So just scrolling through each of these, we can see that the set was faster in every single situation, which is pretty amazing. And it is wicked fast. So if we just go ahead and do a quick calculation, 796 divided by 6.5 is 122. So 122 times faster to find the difference between two arrays, or the intersection 804 divided by 5.9 is 136. 136 times faster to find the intersection, which is pretty amazing. So there you have it. These new set functions are incredibly fast. I hope they help you out next time you need to compare some arrays. I'll put a link to the code in the description. Happy coding and Godspeed.